पहले 11 वर्ष और 52 दिन काल माया ब्रह्मांड में खेले मिले निज जन खेले मिले निज नन पहले 11 वर्ष. Let's review what we discussed yesterday. We went through what unfolded in this morning in Paramdham. Akshay Brahma, like always, like every day, came to have a glimpse of Raji Maharaj, came to have a darshan of Sri Raji Maharaj. From Chandani Chowk, he usually have the glimpse of Sri Raji. He prostrates from Chandani Chowk. It so happened that Raji bent forward today. Syamaji was surprised. She started looking to her right towards Chandani Chowk, and she saw a divine being in the image and likeness of Raji Maharaj. She was in awe. She was at awe. She was surprised because she had never seen anyone but Raji in Paramdham before, in his image and likeness. As Syamaji was surprised, the consorts, the Sakhis of Paramdham, engaged in conversation, engaged in different leelas with Raji Maharaj, they started looking downwards as well. They saw Akshar Brahma. They wanted to know about him. Akshar Brahma was in utter surprise because he as well was unaware of the presence of Syamaji and these consorts. So Akshara Mana Upajiye Asa Dekhun Dhaniji Ko Prema Bilasha, that desire came in his mind, that he wanted to see the leelas, the relationships between Raji Syamaji, or Raji and the consorts. As we began throwing questions at Raji Maharaj, we wanted to know about Akshar Brahma, because in general sense too, when we see something new, we wanted to know about it, we inquire about it. That's the whole purpose of marketing, if we can take it that way, right? When we see an advertisement of something, then that triggers our mind. We feel like, what is this product? We probably want to have it. And the more we hear about it, the more we know about it, we want to buy it. That's the whole purpose of marketing. Just giving an example, Coca-Cola, one of the biggest companies in the world, it spends billions of dollars in marketing every year. Although there's probably no one who hasn't heard about Coca-Cola, they still spend so much in advertising, because the more we see the advertisement, the more that brain is triggered by those drinks and all that, we are inclined to buy more. So as today in the morning when we saw Akshar Brahma for the first time, we had questions about him. We wanted to know about him, what he does, who he is, and we asked Raji these questions. And Raji Maharaj, initially hesitant to let us know anything about him, gradually gives information. He says, Akshar Brahma is the creator. He creates infinite number of universes, destroys them, and the universes that he creates are full of suffering. The world that he creates are full of suffering, full of illusion, death, and all those negative things. We were unaware of what this was all about. We didn't know anything about suffering. We didn't know the other side of bliss. So we told Raji that we wanted to be a part of this. We kept asking, he kept denying. Mane kiye humko dina bera, tab hum agya, hera, hera, hera. Raji argued that we'll forget him, we'll forget our true self, we'll forget ourselves, and we'll forget Paramdham and the Leelas happening there eternally. And we argued that there's no way we could forget him, because we felt that we're one with him. We were a non-dual entity, his consorts, his beloveds. We told him, if If you are the ocean, Raji Maharaj, we are the waves of it. How can waves be awake? How can waves be forgetful of the ocean? Because waves exist because of the ocean. How can sugar forget its sweetness? How can sweetness be separated from sugar? We counter-argued the insistence that we had, that we wanted to be a part of Akshara's game. Raji kept denying. And as we talked about, it was Raji's plan that he let us see Akshara Brahma today. It was Raji's plan that we asked for the game. It was Raji's plan that we wanted to be a part of this world. Raji's intention, though, was to ensure that we insist for this game so that we would not blame Raji for this game and what was about to happen in this world, coming to this world. We would be suffering, we would be forgetful, we would be calling out his name. Yet, we could not blame him. We would not blame him because we asked for this game. So the trick was Raji's. And we also talked about our promises to other sakhis, other consorts, that would awaken each other in case we become forgetful. मैं भूली तो तू मुझे पल में दीजे बताए, तू भूली तो मैं तुझे देऊंगी तुरंत जगाए. If I'm forgetful, please remind me, and if you are forgetful, I would promptly remind you of who you are related to. So that was what we discussed yesterday. In today's session, we'll talk about the process of creation and how it all unfolded. How it happened is what we are going to talk about. Yesterday, we talked about why. Today, we're going to talk about how. We're going to talk about how we found ourselves in this world while being in Paramdham. We were there in Mool Milava. We are there in Mool Milava. Yet, we find ourselves here in this world in the meantime. From Mool Milava. Today's topic of discussion would be our journey from Mool Milava to the Bharatvarsha, to Brajamandal with Sri Krishna, as the cow maids, as the gopiyas. So let's get into the discussion. As we're ready for the game of this suffering, with both excitement and fear, we're excited for getting a chance to be a part of a new game created by Akshar Brahma, coming to this world to be a part of his new Leela. In the meantime, we're fearful that we might be separated from the Lord Supreme that was so endearing to us, that we loved so much. Dahshaton shaba judagiya ki para khela dekhne ki sahe, as we talked about yesterday. Raji prepared the stage for the creation. Since the soul of Paramdham were coming into the world, and Raji himself was coming down to the world to awaken us, to remind us of who we are, the stage had to be set, because the world was nothing but a dream and Raji was all powerful. So stage had to be set. What I mean by that is, let's say when a king or a president visits a place, necessary preparations are made. The stage where he was going to speak from, the podium, is inspected. Everything is inspected so that there are no security lapses. Everyone is invited. Everyone is seated accordingly. So the stage has to be set. Everything has to be prepared in advance. Similarly, since Raji and all his consorts were coming to this world, there were necessary preparations to be made. The world had to be created. Akshar Brahma then, Raji Maharaj, with his will, put Akshar Brahma to sleep and found himself as Narayana in the state of dream. Just like when we go to a dream, we have an identical form. We have the identical Swarup, the similar Swarup. Akshara Brahma finds himself as Narayana. That is the form of Akshara Brahma in his dream. Adi Narayana, the first being of creation that was created in the ocean of attachment, Moharupi Samudra. And he was the resident of it. Nar plus Ayan, Narayan. In Manusmriti, the formation of Narayana is clearly defined, clearly explained. The creation of Narayana. Apo Naraiti Prokta Apo Vai Narashunavaha Taya Dasyayanam Purvam Tena Narayana Smrita. Akshara Brahma found himself as Narayana. In Maheshwara Tantra, Lord Mahesha, Lord Shiva narrates the process of Narayana, how Narayana was created. He narrates that story to Parvati, the goddess Parvati. He states that when Akshara was asleep, he went to his dream. Unaware of his real identity, he found himself as Narayana. Narayanena Rupena Swayam Pashyati Akshara. Akshara himself found himself as Narayana. Let me give you a practical example of that in order to understand how Akshar found himself as Narayana and how he was forgetful of his true identity. When Narayana was created, he didn't know that he was Akshara Brahma. He was in his own abode, Akshardham. When we go to sleep, when we have a dream, we take up a similar identity and we find ourselves in dream. We find ourselves all alone for a fraction of a moment. It's not that we are born, we are born into this new body, the dream body, Shopnik Sari. It is just that our reality takes a form of a body identical to that of our true body. And we find ourselves in different circumstances there. When we're in a dream, we do not know for sure that we are in our room, sleeping on our bed. We find ourselves in a completely different circumstance. Sometimes we may find ourselves driving in Florida. Sometimes we may find ourselves being with our grandparents in Nepal. Sometimes we find ourselves rejoicing the successes, and sometimes we might find ourselves crying for our failures. All in all, what we mean is that when we're in a dream, we do not know our true identity. We find ourselves so lost in the circumstances of our dream. We are only aware of what is happening in the dream, not the reality. Similarly, Akshara Brahma, when he got to sleep, when he begins to have a dream, he finds himself alone. Just like when we have a dream. For example, I had a dream last night where I met my mother. I was in Nepal. She was so happy to see me. My mom, in reality, didn't know that she was in my dream. She cannot know that. Since my body of dream, my swapnik body is formed, all the circumstances are created by that body of my dream. Everything. And when I'm awake from the dream, when I find myself in my room back here in Texas, I do not find my mother, mother of my dream, mother in my dream, Nepal. Everything that I was experiencing in my dream just dissolves, just does not exist anymore. The concept of that, the destruction of everything in our dream, is what is explained as dissolution in Christianity, Mahapralaya in Hinduism, and Qayamat in Islam. So the process of creation can be thoroughly understood by this concept of dream. It is probably to remind us, to let us know the process of creation, who we are and how we ended up here. Raji Maharaj envisioned this concept of dream and let us know how we could understand all the process of creation. As Akshara Brahma finds himself as Narayan, he finds himself alone initially. And he does not like being alone, because nobody likes being alone. As such, he simply utters the phrase, Ekoham Bahushyam, which translates as, I'm alone, let me be many. As this happened, from Narayana was created Sesh Narayan, and from him born Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, the creator of 14 lokas, Lord Brahmaji, the sustainer of 14 planes, Lord Vishnu, and the destroyer of the lives here, Lord Mahesha, Lord Shiva. And from Brahmaji, 8.4 million different lives were created, some waterborne, some airborne, and those living on land. 84 lakh yoniya, 84 lakh jeev were created from Lord Brahmaji. As Mahamati Prananath says, Yame Mahavishnu man manate triguna tathe thirachara shava utpanna. The concept of Purush and Prakriti in creation we find in Vedic scriptures can be understood by this event whereby Purush is Narayana and Prakriti is his desire to reproduce, desire to multiply. That is how creation happens. Me and my desire creates things. Me and my desire to have someone in my life creates a wife for me. Me and my desire to have someone who can call me dad gets me a son or daughter. Me and my desire to have a comfortable life helps me push to my limits, work hard, have a nice career, nice job. That gives birth to a job for me. That is how creation happens. We make friends, we buy cars, clothes, build relationships, and small world around us. We make friends, we make families, we have relatives. We accumulate things, cars, houses, land, and things of that nature. So that is our creation. Similarly, Narayana and his desire to multiply, to reproduce, to extend, led to the creation of 14 planes, all these deities, all the living beings in the world. So that is how the creation unfolded. Lord Brahmaji was assigned to create the living and non-living entities in the 14 planes, 7 heavenly worlds and 7 ethereal worlds, namely Mrityulok, Swargalok, Maharlok, Janalok, Tapalok, Shatalok, the 7 heavenly places, 7 heavenly planes, and the 7 ethereal worlds, Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rashatal, Patal, the 7 ethereal worlds. So Brahmaji created all these 14 planes. That responsibility was assigned to him. And Lord Vishnu was there to provide for the souls, provide for the jivas living in these 14 planes. He was assigned to protect the Dharma, the righteousness, to sustain the world, sustain these 14 planes. and Lord Shiva, the god of death, the destroyer, to maintain the balance here in this world, to maintain what's coming and what's living, so that the balance is always there in how many lives the earth could sustain. So from Ses Narayana, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar created, Brahmaji created the Jivas, Lord Vishnu sustained it through his incarnations, and Lord Shiva through Chitragupta, Yamaraj as we call in Hinduism, sustained the lives here in this world, maintained the balance here in this world. So with Narayana, the extension of his desire to reproduce, the creation of Trinity, what happened was that the Yuga started. The beginning of time when all this was created, Satya Yuga started, the era of truth. And it is stated that the age of Satya Yuga is 1.7 million years, 17,28,000 years. It is known as the Golden Age, the purest era. And it is believed that the average lifespan of all the living entities in Satya Yuga is 100,000 years. It is free from all illusions, no idol worship, because in this age, in this Yuga, everyone would see the divinity residing in each other's soul. So they would prostrate to each other as the divine entities. Unlike in Kali Yuga, where we do not see that, we see the distinction in people in terms of their color, in terms of their socio-economic status. We make friends with those who come in our level, who are at the par of our socio-economic level. In Satya Yuga, it was completely different. It is when the marriage ritual between Lord Shiva and Sati Devi happened. That was Satya Yuga. And with the end of Satya Yuga started Treta Yuga with its span of 1.2 million years, 12,96,000 years to be exact. It was the Silver Age. The third one was Dwapar Yuga with 8,64,000 years of span. It was the era of truthfulness and compassion. It was when the great war of Mahabharata happened. The incarnation of Sri Krishna, the incarnation of Vishnu as Sri Krishna happened during this age, this Yuga. And in Dwapara, the foundation of Dharma, the foundation of righteousness began to crumble gradually. Men became weaker and weaker, and diseases became apparent. It is during the Dwapar Yuga that the Vedas were divided into four: Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. And with the Yuga ended with Lord Supreme, Lord Sri Krishna's exit from this world. And dear Chandraji, this is the Kali Yuga. This is the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, where religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength and memory, among other things, all declined day by day. The world became worse and worse because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali, as described in Bhagavata, one of the most famous religious scriptures in Hinduism. And in this Kali Yuga, what happened, as predicted, was that wealth alone became the signs of man's good birth. Proper behavior and fine qualities. As long as you are wealthy, you are considered that you are the most fortunate. You are the one with fine qualities. And it so happened that in Kali Yuga, the law and justice applied only on the basis of one's power. The combination of all these yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali, known as Chatur Yuga, the span of it, the age of it was 4.3 million years. 43 lakhs 20,000 years. As I said earlier, in these yugas, to sustain the Dharma, to protect righteousness, Lord Vishnu incarnated in different forms. In Satya Yuga, he incarnated as Varaha avatar, Kurma avatar, Naranarayan avatar. In Treta Yuga, he incarnated as Vamana avatar, Parshuram avatar, Ram avatar. He came down in the world as Rama, as Parshurama, as Vamana. What he did with those incarnations is something that we can discuss in our Virat discourse, not on the Beetak discourse. One of the other things that we learn is Sundarsans. In Dwapara Yuga came Lord Sri Krishna and Parshurama. And in Kali Yuga, Lord Vishnu incarnated as Buddha avatar and Kalki avatar. So this is how the Yuga started. Lord Vishnu incarnated in different forms and engaged in different performances. So we care less about other incarnations. We care more about the incarnation of Lord Vishnu as Sri Krishna. Lord Vishnu incarnated as Lord Sri Krishna in every Dwapar Yuga. So until the last Dwapar Yuga, Sri Krishna incarnated in this world millions of times, because it was not the first Dwapara Yuga of this creation. Let me give you a timeline of this. In Surya Siddhanta, one of the Hindu scriptures, it is stated that Chatur Yuga Sahasrani Dinam Paita Maham Bhavet is 1000 Chatur Yuga, totaling 4.32 billion years, make a day of Lord Brahmaji. In one day of Lord Brahmaji, Lord Vishnu finds himself incarnating 24,000 times. In 12 hours of Lord Brahmaji, Lord Vishnu comes to this world as Lord Sri Krishna 1,000 times. As Brahmaji turned 50, and this is it is the first day of his 51st year. Sri Krishna came to this world. Lord Vishnu came to this world as Sri Krishna exactly 18.25 million and 27 times. So did Lord Rama, Buddha avatar, Kalki avatar, and all those incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Like I said earlier, the stage had to be set. Preparations were to be made, because the Lord Supreme was descending to this world. His consorts from Paramdham, because that is an eternal land, Sashvat Bhumi as we call it. All the preparations had to be made. For all those cycles, all those times, Sri Krishna coming 18.25 million and 27 times. Sri Krishna established a love relationship with Gopiya, the cowmaids of Braj. The Lord Supreme, Aksharatit Sri Krishna, had to be here in this world. So the stage had to be set. The cowmaid's heart had to be made pure. Their heart had to love no one but Sri Krishna. As such, in the 51st year of Brahmaji, on the first day, 28th Dwapar Yuga. We only care about the last Dwapar Yuga, as I said. 18.25 million times Sri Krishna had already come to this world, plus 27. It was the 18.25 million, 27 times plus 1 on that 28th Dwapara Yuga. Lord Sri Krishna was born as he promised to Vasudeva and Devaki. And on that Dwapara Yuga, Lord Sri Krishna appeared in the divine form with the soul of Akshar Brahma in the jewel, the Jos of Prachi Maharaj. Aksharati Sri Krishna came to this world before we did from Paramdham. He came to this world to give us the direction, to show us His grace and mercy. And we came down to this world, our surtas, because we were there in Paramdham, we are still there in Paramdham, but our surtas came. What do I mean by surta? Is basically the memory. When you go into your dream, when you sleep, when you find yourself in a dream, roaming around, traveling in Nepal, doing whatever you are doing in your dream, your body is still on your bed, your soul is there, you are alive. It is just that some of your memories take shape and attain a body, the body of your dream, and you experience things there, the circumstance. Mahamati Prananath says, "Jyo needa mein dekhiye shupanna, yon upaje hum brajabadhu janna, upajatahi mana asha ghani, hum kababilasi apani." Just like Narayana was the body of Akshara's dream, Akshara found himself as Narayana, we found ourselves as the daughter-in-law of Braj, Brajabadhu. We found ourselves as Gopiya, the cowmaids. And Lord Sri Krishna was there as Gopala, the protector of cows, and we were the cowmaids. That is where Brajalila starts. And as soon as we found ourselves to be the daughter-in-law of Braj, the Surta came from Paramdham to the body of this Gopiya. We felt like we had some special connection with Sri Krishna. As we heard the news of the birth of Yashodanandan, the birth of Lord Sri Krishna in the house of Yashodanandan, in the house of Yashoda and Nanda Baba, we felt like we wanted to meet Sri Krishna so bad. We were desperate to see him. As soon as we saw the kid, as soon as we see Sri Krishna in his divine form, we got captivated by his form, his beauty. We felt as if there was a special relationship that we were unaware of. Like I said earlier, when we are in dream, we do not know our real identity, because the dream, the state of dream and awake, the awakened state cannot coexist at the same time. We cannot be dreaming and see what's happening in our real life at the same time. It cannot happen that sun shines and there is darkness, because as soon as the sun rises, darkness is gone. Similarly, when we go into the state of dream, there is no way we can find out our real self. There is no way we know who we are, where we are sleeping for that matter. So as soon as we saw Sri Krishna in Yashoda's house in Braja, we felt the special connection. We liked talking to him as he grew. We liked his company. Although we are unaware of the connection. Now we know that the Sri Krishna in Braja was Rajya incarnate. And the cowmates that we found ourselves in Braja were none but the consorts, the Sakhiya of Paramdham. There was special connection, relationship, eternal relationship, but since it was a dream, we were unaware of that relation, that connection, yet we felt deep inside. When we see Sundar Sats, when we see each other, we feel like there is a connection between us. There is so much trust in between Sundar Sats because we feel like they are our eternal friends of Paramdham, right? That's our feeling. Similarly, in Brajamandal, when we saw Sri Krishna for the first time, we felt like the kid was special, the kid was divine. We had some special relation with him. Brajalila happened. We were married. The Gopiyan were married. They had kids, daughters and sons. Daughters is Kumarika Sakhi and sons is Gwalwal. Sri Krishna would have leelas with the sons of this Gopiya and the daughters as well. That is the Brajalila, the eternal sports of Sri Krishna with these cowmaids and their daughters and sons. And Gopala, he's called Gopala because he's the protector of cows. The discussion, although we were married, the Gopiyas were married, they had their household chores to take care of. All they talked about when they met each other was their meeting with Sri Krishna. Hey Sakhi, Sri Krishna came to my house today. He asked for some butter. I gave it to him. And he cherished so much, he savored it so much. He ate as if he had never tasted it before. Oh, I felt so good. Whenever he comes to my house, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in this world. So talks the other Sakhi, other Gopi. You know what? He came to my home yesterday. He milked the cow and I gave him butter. Every time each Sakhi, each Gopiya talked, she talked about Sri Krishna and his Leelas. While there are different concepts of Sri Krishna giving these consorts, these Gopiya, a hard time, people say that he stole butter from their homes. He was a little mischievous. These Gopiyas would often complain to Yashoda Maya about the mischiefs, but the reality is the opposite. They liked his company. They liked to be around Sri Krishna. He was young. Yes, slightly mischievous, of course he was. Yet, the Leelas of Sri Krishna was somewhat captivating, enchanting to all these Gopis. They enjoyed his divine company. We were always talking about Sri Krishna everywhere we went. If they needed water at home, they would drop the water already there, avoiding her mother-in-law, and she would say, let me go fetch some water from the pond. They wanted to meet Sri Krishna so bad all the time. All the discussions were about him. That was the Brajalila, because we felt connected to him. He was young, but we felt that we had some special relationship with him. Since it was the Lord Supreme incarnate, he had to prepare us for another divine sport of Ras. As such, he would take us to Vrindavan sometimes. He would take us to Vrindavan sometimes and show us the eternal sports, eternal Leelas there. Sundar Saji, that was the Leelas of Braj. As it happened, we came to witness the world of suffering. Sri Krishna was always with us. We didn't know he was the Lord incarnate, yet we didn't feel separated from the Lord. As Lord Sri Krishna, Aksharati Sri Krishna told us in Paramdham, we didn't know nothing about who we were. We found ourselves as the cowmaids, Sakhiya, Gopiya, but we didn't know we were from Paramdham. We were the consorts of the Lord Supreme Aksharati Sri Krishna. We were so busy in our household chores and in Leelas with Sri Krishna, not knowing who we were, where we came from, what our true self was, true identity was. As such, another Leela happens, the Leela of Ras, the eternal Ras. We'll talk in more details about Braja Leela tomorrow, in tomorrow's session, and what led to the 52 days of separation with Sri Krishna. What happened? What prompted that? Because Lord wanted to show us the suffering, the other side of bliss, such that we could understand the value of our eternal union with the Lord Supreme. That is the reason why the world was created in the first place, and we were so busy in our relationship with Sri Krishna, not knowing he was the Lord incarnate, not knowing that we were the consorts. So Raji wanted to remind us of our true self. So the 52 days of separation with Sri Krishna happens, and we end up in Vrindavan, the eternal one, in the Leelas of Ras. We'll go into greater depth of Braja Leela and Ras Leela tomorrow, and how the eternal Ras, the concept of eternality of Ras, has been misunderstood by the religious scholars of Vedic origin. They say that Ras is eternal. Ras is eternally happening even today. And they say that the Ras happened in Vrindavan here in India. Mahamati Prananath says Ras, the place that Ras happened, was an eternal land. Namaya guna samsarga kadachit kutrachit priya. It was the world devoid of any illusion. This could not be this world, Vrindavan of India. It had to be somewhere. The location of it, the concept of the eternality of Ras and Braja will be explained tomorrow. Because without the transcendent knowledge of Tartam, many of these concepts cannot be understood, cannot be explained in persuasive manner. That is why we are learning how the eternal knowledge of Tartam came about, the origin of Tartam, the origin of this transcendent knowledge through Satguru Devchandraji, the explanation of it through Prananath, through his writing in the book of Tartam. That's why we're learning this Beetak, because with this understanding, how all this unfolded, we would understand the most pressing questions that humanity had, the humanity to the present day has. We can find answers to all of them. So the concept of Braja and Ras and what happens afterwards would be explained in the coming sessions. I hope this is a little too technical for youngsters to understand. Those who've been listening Beetak in Hindi and Nepali would understand all these concepts. But those who are listening to this for the very first time in English will have difficulty understanding and grasping it. But I hope that you would be with us. There would be some relatable stories, the sadhana, the penance of Satguru that we can relate to, the moral lessons, the valuable lessons that we can learn from would be there in coming days when we understand when we go and understand the lives of Satguru Devchandraji and Prananath. But for now, it is the Leela of Sri Krishna in the consorts. It's a little too detailed, a little too technical for everyone to understand, but I hope you are with me in this. So with this, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you all for tuning in.